listening to the Compassion Fatigue podcast, which just turned the big 50. This is Session 50. Hello there, and welcome back to the Compassion Fatigue podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Blau. My guest today is Allison Sampson. She is a self-care coach, speaker, and workshop leader who helps women make room for themselves, turn workouts into personal play dates, and makes healthy eating feel indulgent. Allison is certified in plant-based nutrition from Cornell University and received her training as a health and wellness coach through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. For 20 years, she ran Allison's Gourmet, the first online vegan bakery and chocolatier, Holy Yum, which she retired from in 2016. Allison is an award-winning vegan chef and author of Quick and Easy DIY Salad Bar, Comfortably Yum, and the Dairy Freedom Cookbook. She is also a NIA Black Belt instructor, mama to lifelong vegan Olivia, and co-creator of the Dairy Detox. Today, to share her tips on building resiliency, is my guest, Allison Sampson. Hi, Allison. Welcome to the Compassion Fatigue podcast. How are you?
I am great. How are you, Jen?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So, so many of us, including myself, we have had to learn the importance of self-care and building resiliency kind of the hard way, maybe like crashing and burning, and then realizing that we sort of need this in our lives. Can you give me some background as to kind of what led you to where you are today? I understand that you kind of learned the hard way as well.
I did learn the hard way, and I don't know that we can learn the easy way. I remember, feeling this way with my daughter. She's 11, and I want to prevent all these different things from happening for her. And yet the best things about myself that I like the most were the things I learned the hard way. And I kind of wish it wasn't like that. Alas, it is. Yeah. So speaking of my daughter, she was definitely part of how I learned that self-care was not negotiable for me anymore. My mother taught me a lot of what not to do. She lived very unhealthfully, and so much so she was obese and died when she was only 59 years old of a heart attack. Wow. And that was a really intense time in my life. I was 20 weeks pregnant with my daughter. And so they never got to meet. And to me, that's just such a tragedy. And my mom was someone who, she was a nurse. She was all about taking care of other people. And I watched her not taking care of herself. I didn't know what it meant when it was happening. I just knew something about it was different than what I wanted to do. And so when I had my daughter, we had the most perfect pregnancy. And I don't know many people who can say that. And I also say that I was a perfect mother right up until the moment I went into labor. And the reason I say that is that I had we had a really intense birth, 39 hours of labor, 19 hours of pushing, which is, it's just insane to, go to do that. And I don't even know who the woman was who was capable of doing that, but I take my hat off to her. And then my daughter was the variety who did not sleep. So she woke up every 15 minutes all night long. And after a year of that, I developed postpartum depression from severe sleep deprivation, which is not, I didn't even know that was a thing. I knew that sleep deprivation was, horrible thing. I just didn't know that you could get postpartum depression a whole year after your baby was born. That's why I say I learned the hard way. I was flat on my back, flat on my face, wide awake, couldn't sleep, like all these things that really messed with my brain. And I got to the point where I feared that if I didn't start taking this into my own hands, I was not going to survive this experience.
And so, can you kind of tell us what led you to? You're a self-care coach these days, correct?
I am.
What kind of was your turning point and led you down that particular path?
Well, I, after being coached by someone who actually, she was a business coach. That's what I went to her for. And she also did other coaching, and she saw that what I needed most was self-care. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But what's really funny is that about 20 years prior, I had discovered a quote by Audre Lorde, who was a feminist writer, and she spoke out about injustice, and she's an author. And so her quote was, and I actually had it taped to my computer screen, and I didn't totally understand the whole thing, but here's what it said. Self-care is not indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Now, I didn't exactly, the whole political thing, I was like, whatever about that. But this self-care is not indulgence. It is self-preservation. There was something about that I was like, this is important. I need this in my life. I was taught to work hard, not rest, do the right thing, be responsible. These were the lessons that I learned. And indulgence was kind of like the worst thing that you could do in my mom's eyes. She was a single parent from the time I was 2, and she had 3 jobs and got a doctor, 2 master's degrees and a doctorate by the time I was 13. And so, she was very much an overachiever, and I was who fell through the cracks of what was going on for her. So when I saw this wisdom, and I connected it in the back of my mind with what I saw that didn't seem to make sense to me, I listened, and I said, in my mind, I was like, I think that this is one of those time-released wisdom pieces that the rest of it will make sense later. And now that our world has been illuminated in the way that it has with the political climate we have, the political piece really has come to light for me as well, that when we as women care for ourselves, and Audre Lorde was an African-American woman, so for her it was even more important and more fitting that when we take care of ourselves, it's an act of political warfare. We are taught by the culture that we're supposed to take care of everyone else. We're supposed to be running around doing everything to make everybody happy. Don't sweat, don't smell bad, don't look bad, make sure you're smiling. And when we buck that part of the system, it is an act of political warfare when we say, I matter.
Yeah, I love the way that you reframe that. I think that's so crucial to think of it that way, because a lot of people think, oh, self-care is indulgent, it is selfish. But another common barrier that I hear, and one that I've struggled with myself as well, is people say, oh gosh, I don't have time for self-care, or it could be the perception of not having enough time, right? Because 8 hours can go by and you've been on Facebook all day. But so what do you say to that people that don't think that they have the time to put into that?
What I have realized the older I get is self-care is no longer negotiable. And the way that I coach and talk about self-care isn't extravagant things. And yes, we are all afraid of being selfish. It's like the worst thing you could possibly do. And again, that goes back to our enculturation that being selfish is not okay. And I believe that there's a difference between being selfish and being selfish. And we need to take care of ourselves first. We have nothing to give if we're empty. And yet, if we're attempting to give from empty, then what we're really giving is resentment. And that is not anything we need in the world. So what I advocate for is simple self-care practices that we can integrate into our daily lives and work with things that we're already doing. I'm not saying you need to go to Tahiti for 2 weeks every quarter of the year. To me, that's not self-care. And it's barely a vacation if you really think about it. I mean, what do we do before we go on a big vacation? We're slammed at work. We have to get all these things done. And really, we're hustling and stressed out. Then we get on our vacation and hopefully we take it easy. And then we get home and now we have to catch up on everything that we missed while we were away. So it sort of defeats the purpose of all the relaxation that we may have gained from the vacation. It just fritters away in light of all the to-dos. So I say, look at what you're already doing in your life. For example, sleep. You're already doing that. So what can you do to improve your sleep that will actually take care of you? And one of the things is going to bed at a regular time, turning off those devices, turning off those blue screens so that we can prepare ourselves for sleep. And really knowing how many hours do you need? I call that your sleep number. I don't talk about the mattress. Do you know your sleep number? That commercial.
But everybody has a sleep kind of set point, right? Some people need 8 hours. Some people need 10 hours.
Exactly. And so many people think, oh, well, I only need 5 or 6. And I really challenge people when they say that. And I say, are you sure? How do you wake up? And if they say, oh, well, I wake up from the alarm, then I say, you're not getting enough sleep. I mean, if you need an alarm to get up, you're not getting enough sleep. So just shifting our relationship around sleep and dispelling and releasing that common cultural belief that needing sleep is a weakness. We need to just let go of that myth. It's so not true. We need sleep. And I learned that so clearly in my journey and relationship with sleep deprivation. I never take it for granted now. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect about it. I'm actually a recovering perfectionist. So I'm not perfect about my sleep. What I love about the sleep one, doing self-care through sleep, is that we have a chance to do it over and over and over. So if I don't get it this tonight, I get to do it again tomorrow and see if I can do better. And if I fall off one time, no problem. I've got another day.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that we're talking about like simple ways that you can incorporate self-care into your daily life. So let's jump right in. So we know that just like sleep, getting exercise is really, really important for so many reasons. But you recommend, instead of really focusing on like hardcore exercising, you're saying that people should focus on movement. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Sure. So I think that when we say the word exercise, there is an idea that comes to mind. And for some people, it's a great idea. It's associated with good feelings. It's associated with positive. If that works for you, stay with that. If you're like me and you don't like exercising and you don't like sweating, figure out some kind of way that you can move your body that you're having so much fun that those things are being accomplished, but you don't even know it because you're having so much fun. So it's funny, a lot of people, when they know about another thing that I do, which is I am a Nia technique black belt instructor. And what the Nia technique is it is the most holistic movement form I have ever experienced. And it changed my life as much as becoming vegan 21 years ago changed my life. And what it is it's dance, martial arts, and yoga, all combined to really soulful, uplifting, great music. And it can be as, vigorous or as gentle as one wants it to be in the moment. And so I teach classes in that, and I'm going for it, and I'm sweating, and from someone watching me, they could definitely label that exercise. To me, I'm not exercising. I am moving joyfully, and I am having so much fun that I'm accomplishing those more technical things like exercising and sweating with joy. So if your way of moving that you love is, being on your bicycle, going for a walk, hiking, being with your dog, playing roughhousing with your dog, I think we need to take exercise out of the box and expand it into movement.
So maybe just, what I recommend to clients sometimes is just to, maybe just set a timer on your phone that every hour you get up and stretch, or you take the long way to the bathroom, right? Because so many people in helping professionals, they don't even take time to pee, right?
I know.
So, I say set a timer, maybe every hour on the hour, you just get up and do a little bit of movement. You're not doing jumping jacks and push-ups necessarily, or if you want, I suppose you could, but just get moving. And so have you heard of the concept of deskercise?
I have.
Yeah. So any tips for, maybe people that have more kind of sedentary jobs?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that. I have found myself in that position. Now, I used to have a business called Allison's Gourmet, and it was an online, I shipped high quality gourmet baked goods, all vegan, organic, fair trade, sweets, all over the country. And so I was moving a lot more when I did that. And I retired from that after 20 years. In October of 2016. And now as a coach, I am finding, and I'm really doing more of my writing, I'm sitting a lot more. And so I am practicing things where I'm like, okay, I know that I haven't peed in a while. I better get up and just go. I mean, it's amazing how we can get into a groove of creativity with our mind and then not remember that we also have a body. So yes, absolutely. I agree with you about getting up and going pee, stopping what we're doing and, stretching, tilting, one ear to a shoulder and then the next, just standing up. And you mentioned jumping jacks, even doing jumping jacks for 1 minute, that can really get that blood flowing. Or lifting the toes as we're sitting at the desk. In NIA, we call that duck walk. You're lifting your toes on, what I mean by that? I'm doing it with my hands, but you can't see. Reaching up and grasping the hands and above the head and just reaching and stretching and opening the body, even just opening the mouth and dropping the jaw. Those kinds of things can really help create space within ourselves so that we can do all of these other things that we're doing in the world.
Yeah, and there's so many different things you can do, right? So you can get your heart rate up by doing some jumping jacks or, power walking to the bathroom, or even just taking a nice walk, on a break or on a lunch break. You can, they have these resistance bands. Is that what they're called? I think. Yeah, they have these bands that you can, just keep in, if you work in an office, just keep in your office. Maybe if you're an ACO, you keep it in your truck or your van or, wherever is your kind of like personal space at work, keep one of these bands, find a heavy object. You can do some bicep curls. You can do squats with just your body weight, right? You can do calf raises. So you can do weight training, you can do some cardio, or like you said, you can, maybe just throw on a 10-minute YouTube video of some yoga stretches.
Right.
You don't have to be all tied up in a pretzel on top of your desk to be doing yoga. You can do it there's different types of yoga and you can do it very discreetly. Just some gentle stretching is really going to just break that just sitting there kind of thing. And I think another, very important and I think overlooked, but very inexpensive way to take care of ourselves and even improve our mood is water, pure, clean water. right? What are your top tips about
Drink
staying?
it.
Good one.
Drink it. Get your fresh water. Have clean water and drink it. If you have a glass on your desk, you will mindlessly drink it throughout the day. And I don't typically advocate mindlessness. Sometimes, if it is in the benefit of something that's going to help you, then fine, be mindless about it. Just get your water in. Or even like you're talking about setting a timer, you can set a timer and have that glass of water, drink it, go pee, fill your water, and come back. And then you're feeding two birds with one scone by going to the bathroom and getting up and walking and getting your water. See, this is what I mean about integrating all of these things into your daily life, things you're already doing.
Some listeners are saying, yeah, right, ladies. Like, I'm going to give up my 5 cups of coffee a day. I'm not going to be able to survive. But so first of all, if you're drinking caffeinated coffee, that's just like sucking all the water out of you. And water, pure water, can detoxify. It can boost your mood, make you less susceptible to things like depression and anxiety, right?
Absolutely. And one of what I do actually, I have a big glass of water in my bathroom. And in the morning, when I go into the bathroom for my pee, I drink that big glass of water. I think it's like maybe 20 ounces. Sometimes I do 32 ounces, but that can feel like too much. I kind of go with whatever I'm feeling in the day. But just getting that hydration in first. And if you like, you can add a squeeze of lemon to that to encourage the alkalinity in the body. And just getting that. So, okay, if you're going to be drinking coffee, that's another issue. I'm not completely against it. I personally don't drink it. I know for some people, it works for them. And I would ask, are you using it as a medication? If so, maybe that's something to look at. But if you're drinking coffee, start your day with your water. Get yourself hydrated. You might find that you don't want as much coffee. Maybe you have only half a cup. Maybe you start weaning yourself off of it. But getting that first hit of hydration first thing in the morning is so important.
Yeah, because you can be drinking caffeinated green tea, which has a lot of benefits, but if you drink too much of caffeinated anything, you really got to make sure you're balancing that out and putting the water back into your body.
Well, and it also, obviously caffeine also affects your sleep. So it's looking at both ends of your day. How am I starting my day? How am I ending my day? And are they supporting each other? If I'm not sleeping enough, I'm going to need more coffee, or I'm going to think I need more coffee so that I can get myself moving. If coffee is what you need to get yourself moving, I would go back and say you're probably not getting enough sleep.
Yeah, and caffeine can interfere with people that are prone to anxiety as well. It's a stimulant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so speaking about diet, how do you think that diet, including maybe some supplements, can help to build resiliency? Because they say, we're now finding out that a lot of neurotransmitters live in the gut. And so it's really important what we feed our body if we want to affect our mood. What do you recommend?
I think that there are so many ideas about diet out there. And what I think is the most important is to know your own body. Nobody else is the expert on your body the way you are. And a lot of us have spent our lives relying on other people's advice. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a chiropractor or an acupuncturist, and when they find out I'm vegan, they tell me that I need meat, or I need this, or I need that. And I remember early on kind of feeling pulled off by that. Like I didn't stop being vegan, but I did what I always do, which is I headed to the library, which back in that day, we did not have the internet. And I would just research everything I could find. And then I realized, oh, I need to ask a question. if somebody says that to me. And so I discovered the question was, what is it that you think I need that I would be getting from that meat that you're suggesting? What are you thinking I need? Because I know that plants are the answer to everything. So that's one piece that every single person who has an opinion, whether educated or not, about diet, nobody can disagree that we need to eat more plants, right?
I can't argue with you.
Yeah, I didn't think you would. I don't know that anyone can argue against that. So when we realize, if we get that kind of advice, what is it that you think? I mean, the one, I had some anemia at one point, which I don't anymore. Now that I know how to balance things out, the acupuncturist was big on, red meat because of anemia. Well, I looked up and found that I could eat beets to accomplish that. So would I rather eat a beet or, hurt somebody? Obviously, I am going to choose the beet. So I went back and educated my acupuncturist, because she said, "Oh, wow, your blood seems so much better. You took my advice, right?" I said, "I did take your advice." And I added to it, "I'm eating beets." And she was like, "I didn't know that could work." So just because somebody is a doctor or some kind of professional does not mean that they know anything about diet. So really, we need to take our health into our own hands and know what we need. And there's a difference between a craving and a deficiency. And there are ways that we can discern that. And one of the objective ways is to get blood tests and look and see what is happening in there, and find a healthcare provider who is vegan friendly and thus one and the same, in my opinion, educated, and can help with those balances.
Yeah, I think that's so important as a therapist. Whenever I meet a client for the first time, we always talk about, okay, have you had your blood checked recently? We want to look for things like, is your thyroid out of whack, right? I mean, we don't want to like pump you full of antidepressants if it's your thyroid, or if your vitamin B or vitamin D levels are low. All the Prozac in the world isn't going to help if you're deficient in any of these things that can sometimes. So if your thyroid is off, it can manifest as anxiety or depression. If you have low levels of B or D, it's going to manifest as depression. If you have low testosterone, that can manifest as depression. So again, you want to know what's going on with you before you just start popping pills. So I want to ask you, herbal supplements, yay or nay?
I think that it really depends on what we're using them for. And when we kind of just go by what's being told, the latest fad thing, I used to follow all what's the new superfood? What's this? What's that? And I just don't chase that anymore, because there's always some new thing. So I go back to the plants. I always go to the plants, and that can be an herbal supplement. I mean, culinary herbs they have a lot of antioxidants. They do wonderful things. So food, I think that we need to look at what we're taking in terms of food. And I also think that, in terms of media, social and otherwise, we need to take a look at what am I taking in here, and how is that impacting me? So I think it really depends. And I think that finding someone who is trusted, who really knows what they're talking about. And I love that you do what you do with your clients, that you say, let's look at your blood. I've never heard of a therapist doing that. So thank you for that. And do you then read the tests from them, or do you work with someone who knows how to read blood tests and help?
So that really depends on the client. So I'll generally send them to their own primary care physician and recommend, that they get kind of a full workup, and then we kind of go from there, So if they want me to talk with their doctor, I'm happy to do that. But again, it gives me kind of a baseline or a roadmap of where to go.
Right.
So if it comes back and it says, well, okay, we need to supplement your thyroid, or we're going to put you on a vitamin D supplement, then as the therapist, I'm kind of, and or if the doctor comes back and says, everything's perfect, I want to put you on the Prozac, okay, then I, as the therapist, I'm going to monitor you throughout our work together. Hey, are you having any side effects that are bothering you? You know, are you feeling worse? Are you feeling better? Blah, 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 blah. And so, yeah, I'm very holistic, I guess, in my therapeutic approach.
Yay.
Yay.
I love that.
Yeah. So any other tips for reducing stress or increasing self-care that you'd like to share? Any kind of quick tips people can throw in throughout the day?
You got me there when you said quick tips. One of the things that I think is really important is for us to learn how to set boundaries and how to say no. And it's something that we're really, really not very good at. And it's not our fault. We have been taught not to be good at it. I can't stress enough how important it is to realize that the culture has told us and taught us things that make us do things the way that we do them. Not that we don't have personal responsibility, just that sometimes there are things that are bigger than our own personal things going on. And I actually have a 6 easy ways to say no download that, if you want, I can give you the link for your listeners. And it's just a way of communicating, hey, I care about you. I care that you want this, and it doesn't work for me. And so I give, several examples and, just ways that people can really take that in so that we can get comfortable with saying no, so that it's not such a taboo thing. We need to say no, because every time we say yes to one thing, we say no to everything else. And I think that if we treated our yeses as the valuable things they are, we would have an easier time saying no.
Yeah, and it takes practice.
It does.
Yeah, you're going to get pushback, and it takes practice, and it's uncomfortable and awkward at first. But, with anything that requires practice, it gets easier.
It does. And it really takes courage to do that, knowing that people aren't really going to like it. But what I have discovered over time is that when I can trust someone's no, I can really trust their yes. If I can trust that they're going to say no when it doesn't work for them, then when they say yes, I won't be in fear of them resenting me and taking it out on me later.
Yeah, I love that.
So I celebrate when people say no to me. I'm like, and I even will say to them, do you need to say no? Sometimes I'm a little too much like that. Like, I just give people outs because I only want people to do things that they really want to do.
Sure, absolutely. So Allison, a two-part question here. First of all, you're a self-care coach. Can you describe what that is and how people, if they're interested, how they can learn more about you or even get in touch?
Sure. So as a self-care coach, what I do is I work with a holistic self-care wheel that I created, which has 8 principles of self-care that work together. And it's all about that integrating small practices into our daily lives that make big difference to sustaining all the wonderful things that we're doing in the world. And what I say is that self-care is what makes it possible for us to give the world the best of us instead of what's left of us.
Well said.
Thank you. And you can get in touch with me on my website, AllisonRiversSampson.com, which I'm sure you're going to link to. And I have a weekly love letter that I send out that is just reminders of loving yourself. And sometimes I'll send out a vegan recipe or just some tip about how to navigate some part of a relationship issue, or just little reminders that you matter and that self-care is not selfish. It's self-ish. It's putting yourself first so that you have something to give.
Amen. Allison, thank you so much for taking the time to share all of your insights with us today. And I will put those links up on the show notes page at the compassionfatiguepodcast.com if you want to learn more or even get in touch with Allison. Allison, thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. I loved being with you.
Oh, thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Compassion Fatigue Podcast. Please remember to head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show so you never miss a single episode. And don't forget to check out the CompassionFatiguePodcast.com for more great resources, including all the links that Allison mentioned in today's show. Please note that this podcast is not meant to provide medical advice or substitute for psychological care. Please consult with a mental health professional if you need additional support. And if you are feeling suicidal, please go to your nearest emergency room or call 911.